Do you realize that you cannot be effective in priesthood if you are ignorant? It doesn't work with priesthood. Spiritual knowledge is the currency with which we do priesthood. Are you still with me? Oh, you are not following me. How many of you have been laboring to find the will of God on many matters? The reason why it is difficult, consecration. When you consecrate yourself to serve God's will, it will be easier for you to access what is on his mind, what is on his heart. The goal of consecration, from the perspective of Romans chapter 12, is what? Knowing the will of God. All right, I need to take you to Romans chapter 6. I don't have time to do all the analysis in this scripture, but I believe the scripture is self-explanatory. He said, I beseech you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable act of service. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove that which is good, that which is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. I told you that the goal of consecration in Romans chapter 12 is that it affords us the opportunity to be able to access the will of God. Consecrated people don't struggle to know God's mind. Don't struggle. They don't struggle. God is willing to let them into the secret of his will. They don't struggle. If you want your priesthood to be powerful, you must present yourself a reasonable person before God. Now, as you begin to function in priesthood, God is not just concerned about the sacrifices you offer. He's concerned about the offerer. I'm going to show you 3 requirements for a priesthood in the book of Leviticus. And as we study it, you will discover that what will make your prayer potent is not your prayer. What will make it potent is your lifestyle. Because God will first accept you before he will accept your offering. So if God rejects you, there's no way God can accept your offering. If God should cast you away, there is no way he can accept your offering. He will accept you first before he will accept your offering. You know, all of us can pray, but God's response to each and every one of us, it will never be the same. There are parameters that determine whose voice is honored in the chambers of God. One of these parameters is determined by your level of consecration. Your level of consecration is supposed to be the resultant effect of your salvation. The next thing you should do after your salvation is that you consecrate yourself to serve the will of God. So I want to say this quickly. A forgiving sinner is different from a consecrated believer. Let me say it again. A forgiving sinner is different from a consecrated believer. It is when you come to the point where you begin to consider consecrating yourself, God now begins to call you reasonable. Every other believer that has not come to the point of consecration is unreasonable. So when the person is bringing a sacrifice to God, what God is saying about him is that you're unreasonable.